Seen that video yet? I was gonna wait until the actual show here to check it out. I did not get teary-eyed. I did kind of try to keep my emotions in check, but I gotta say though that definitely brought back a lot of memories from 14 years, and I remember from day one when he first came here, and that was a long time ago, but it doesn't seem that long ago for me anyway. But 14 seasons, man, it's crazy. Longest tenured coach in the Seattle Seahawks history and most successful coach in Seahawks history, and no longer the coach of the Seahawks. We're going to talk about all this on today's show, Hawks Real Talk. Thank you for tuning in. We've got some of you guys on Facebook. We have some of you on YouTube and live on Instagram, which right now is kicking butt in terms of viewership. We've got 80 plus people watching on Instagram. Hello, everybody on Instagram. Thanks for tuning in. You are watching Hawks Real Talk. I've got some special guests on the show that I'm going to bring in just a minute, but we're going to be talking about Pete Carroll for the next hour or so, about Pete Carroll, the legacy that he left, and of course, who is best suited to take his place. None of this has been pre-discussed. We have no idea what either any of these guests are going to say. We're going to find out in raw form today. So without further ado, let's bring the crew on right here. There we go. Welcome, guys. Make sure your mics are unmuted, but we've got the Real Talk gang up in the top right. Always as much energy as Pete Carroll, probably. Sky High Aviation, Jose, all the way from the University of North Dakota. What's up, Sky High?
What is going on, Norvin? I'm feeling all kinds of emotions after watching that video. I'm so sad right now. Actually, like I wanted to cry, but it was such an emotional video, and I'm so happy that we were able to get that in, because Pete deserves every moment, every piece of thank you, and every moment that he deserves it all. He's brought us so much joy over the past decade and a half, and I'm so happy, and this is the only Seahawks football that I've ever known, that probably the other two of us have ever known besides you. And I'm excited to see where this is going. I'm excited that Johnny is going to get his chance now, but I'm also very, very sad, and I'm unsure what life of Seahawks football is like outside of Pete Carroll. Piece of Seahawks died when Pete Carroll was relieved of his duties. So I'm very, very sad, but also exciting.
You made the point before we played the video. You said it's almost like watching one of those memorial videos, even though the man is well and alive, but it's like watching it. You feel like you're watching a memorial tribute. But luckily, that's not what this is. He's still around. We'll see where he ends up. But I still want to go around and introduce everybody. It is true, though. The three of you, I started collaborating with you guys back in 2020 during the pandemic, and all of you were pretty much high school, or maybe younger than that? Middle school.
He was in middle school. Us two were in high school.
That's right. You guys had a year up on him. So now we got two college guys and a guy who's approaching the college levels. Let's go to the youngest member of the group, Nick LaBow. Nick, glad you can join us for this tribute to Pete Carroll and talking about the coach to replace him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wow, you guys really got me on that opening video. Pete Carroll, we can sit here and explain all we want, but it truly won't lift his impact to the level it deserves. I mean, just what a phenomenal all-around guy, and of course, coach, brought us our only Super Bowl, only coach I've seen in my lifetime, but I won't go too into that. Norb, Cameron, Jose, pleasure to be talking with you.
All right. Thank you, Nick LaBow, to be here. And our special additional guest today, who's but not a stranger to the show or these collaborations, Cameron Hughes. Cameron, how you been? It has been a while since we've seen you.
Yeah, I think it was the Cowboys game I was last year. So, yeah, a month and a half. Things were a lot better back then. But
now, are you like Sky High Aviation? Are you also in your dorm?
Yeah.
So you got that's your
roommate's
bunk above you, right?
No, this is just my bed. My desk is.
Oh, you got the deck but you're underneath your bed, a bed, right? Okay, That's funny. So we've got Jose and Cameron both broadcasting out of their dorms. Well, me and Nick are broadcasting out of our respective residence at this point, at least for now, until Nick ends up in a dorm somewhere. All right, well, let's just talk a little bit about the man. We saw that tribute video, and I guess for you guys, what would be your favorite memory or the biggest impact, moment that Pete Carroll leaves with you, or your memory of him during his time with the Seahawks? I know it's a hard one because there's so many, but what stands out the most, Sky High?
I think without Pete Carroll, I would be a completely, I don't hate to say, but I want to say that I'd be almost a completely different person without Pete Carroll. When I was younger, Seahawks football was kind of like the one thing that I looked forward, and it's still one of the things that I looked forward to every single week during school, during the fall time. And I think, the way that he made this team and our fan base into a group of believers, into a team that felt as if we were the true underdogs no matter what contest we went into. We were always the ones who were climbing that hill, and we were about to get over that hill. And I mean, we had so many crazy games with Pete, so many down to the wire finishes, insane games, and I think it just turned especially me and a lot of 12s into these passionate football loving fans that just kind of rejuvenated, and for me sparked my love for this game, and this never ending belief that we can get it done. I mean, that Carolina game when we were down big, I think that played a big role into my fandom, that anything is possible with him at the helm. We've seen almost everything. I mean, we've seen him come down from 30 plus points to make it a game again. We've seen him throw the ball at the 1 yard line to toss away a championship, right? So we've seen everything with Pete Carroll, and I think I've never gotten a more fuller experience when watching sports than watching the Seahawks, and it's just never going to be the same without him. And I'm grateful because it's shaped who I am today. I feel as if I'm a crazy hyper energetic person, and when I watch football, I'm the exact same excited way that I am now. In this short moment, I've met Pete once. I met him at a game once when he was signing autographs, and he went through every fan, signed everyone's. I have a picture of him somewhere. He signed my hat, and I told him, I was in 6th grade at the time, I told him I voted for president, which I think it was the year that we had an election. So I told him that he would make a great president, and that he was a great leader of our team. So that's probably one of my favorite memories.
Garrett Shepard says,
he's not dead.
Pete Carroll. He's not dead. Just to make sure that's clear. He's just not our coach anymore. But maybe some of you feel like that. I understand it.
I feel like that, yeah.
Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, Jose really summed it up well. Leadership, energy. I think for a specific memory, I mean, the Super Bowl's an easy one. So I won't choose that, but I'll just go, not a specific one, but just every single game on the sidelines. I mean, that energy was unmatched in practice, in training camp. So yeah, I think that's what I'd choose.
All right. How about you, Cameron?
Yeah, for me, it kind of just all runs together. I don't know. There's one really funny moment that I go back and watch sometimes. It's, do you guys remember when, after the Fail Mary, when they're like the refs on the field announcing the call, and Pete's like at the bottom of the screen,
yeah,
and he says the call stands,
oh, yeah.
It's so funny. Oh
You're
my
right.
God. That was one of my favorite moments. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think he should have been fired. Like, at first I was kind of like, all right, they underperformed clearly, but I mean, it was the second year of a rebuild. I mean, let's say we missed the playoff last year and made it this year, like, he's not getting fired. I said it in the chat last night. This is what Seahawks fans wanted when they said they wanted active ownership. You got your legendary football coach fired. So I hope you're happy.
So I agree with you. I've said many times, I thought Pete Carroll at least deserved one more year to kind of, really, when you think about it, last year was the rebuild. And a rebuild generally takes at least 2 seasons, maybe even 3, but it didn't feel like one because we went to the playoffs last year and had a winning record. So we've never really ever had a true rebuild under Pete Carroll. Every time you think it's a rebuild, well, they go out and usually make a playoff game anyway. So we've never had that time where you go, like, oh, we're going to suck for like 3 years and then we'll come back and be strong. We've never had to do that. So I feel like we were almost, as a team, too spoiled with the whole not making the playoffs for any stretch of time. So, you know, as soon as something goes bad, it was almost looking for an excuse to fire him, it felt like. And really, I feel like, you know, more looking back at the breadcrumbs leading up to this, there was that, I don't know if you've seen the picture, but there's a very poignant picture that was taken, I believe, by a King 5 reporter. But it has Pete Carroll after the Eagles game where he's just sitting there, kind of standing there looking at the field. And I think he was just saying he didn't want to come off the field because he just wanted to soak it all in. But I feel like he was looking at it thinking, I think he knows his days are numbered. And maybe he was already told that, you know, that you may not be coming back. And that Eagles victory was almost like, because remember, it came in the heels of that bad stretch of losing those 4 games, and it felt like, it's all going down the tubes. And then they beat the Eagles and kind of showed some life. But it was almost like, I felt like he almost got his pink slip or his warning, like, just to let you know, Pete, you know, this is probably going to be it, you know, maybe unless you make the playoffs. I don't know. I just felt like, looking back, he might have already seen it coming. But
yeah, him and John Schneider had a midseason meeting with Jody Allen. So that's probably.
So maybe they did. Maybe his performance report was already saying that the writing was on the wall. I wouldn't be surprised. But I think for me, looking back, you know, as my memory of Pete Carroll, I wasn't really fond of the idea in the beginning. Now, you guys weren't really around yet. You were still little kids, you know, probably didn't understand what was going on. But this was a time when Pete Carroll was USC. You know, he was like a rival of UW. So from a Seattle standpoint, he was a coach that we didn't like to see very often. And him coming up here in the wake of the USC controversy, it felt like he's just getting away from all that and trying to just sort of get out before the house burns down. So that's kind of my first initial thought when I saw him coming here. I was like, what's he doing up here anyway? Is he really interested in being a Seahawks coach, or is he just trying to change houses here before things get too bad? But, you know, 2010, we make the team, win a playoff game with the Beastquake run, and then, you know, a couple seasons later, we're in the divisional. Then, of course, we're in the Super Bowl, and boy, does that change people's hearts pretty quick. And so it didn't take much longer than that. A couple years in, playoff run, I was all in. But, you know, I just think there's so many amazing moments. It's too easy to say the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship games to be the ones, but I think it's the little things. And I bring up 2 things that I guess jump to mind. One is Sam Dog is a good friend of mine, and he's been a longtime fan of the Seahawks. I don't know if you guys know the story, but Sam Dog, you know, always goes down before the games and hypes up the players and high fives them and stuff, and Pete Carroll as well. And one day, Pete Carroll noticed that Sam Dog's jersey was fading. It was like his personal jersey was like, numbers were fading off, and he goes, Sam, we need to get you a new jersey, you know. And of course that'd be easy, anybody could say that and then you just don't do anything. Well, a couple weeks later, he shows up, custom jersey with Sam Dog on the back in the wrapper, hands it to him and says, here you go. And it's like, wow, I mean, that's no cheap, that's not like giving a pair of gloves. I mean, those custom jerseys are, you know, expensive. So I thought that was really cool that not only did he follow through on what he said he was going to do, but he actually, you know, gave something of some really amazing value. And so I know how much that means to Sam Dog, and you know, that's one guy, but he's changed his life. You know, Sam Dog is like eternally like a fan for Pete Carroll. So little things like that will always be, you know, what I think is great. But then I recently got the opportunity to take a tour of VMAC before the Steelers game. And I got to watch the team practice indoors, and I've not had a lot of opportunities to do that. I've seen a lot, you know, on the training camp field, but to see them indoors was kind of a rare thing. And afterwards, everybody kind of went out. The families were all kind of hanging out, but Pete Carroll was on that field, hanging out with, I think it was his grandkids, like teeing the ball up, letting them kick, you know, attempt to kick field goals and stuff. And it was interesting. I just saw him. He wasn't talking to reporters. He wasn't talking to fans. He was just hanging out with his grandkids on the field for what seemed like probably a good hour after practice. And again, it's probably because he knew this is probably the last time. And it was just a very moving, poignant moment there, just watching him with his with his grandkids on the field, and I got to witness that in person. And I guess I just saw a softer, gentler version of Pete Carroll, because I'm so used to seeing the coach version and what we see on all the videos. But it was cool. It was really cool to see this other side of him, where he was just a grandpa playing with his grandkids. So, we'll never forget all the great moments he's provided, the winning seasons we've had. Yeah, there have been some downs too, frustrations where we want to strangle the guy. What were you thinking? But for the most part, we've had a lot more good than bad. So it's going to be some big shoes that someone's got to fill. So
he gets to go be a grandpa now. I mean, he gets to go spend as much time with his family as he wants. Regardless of what you think of the guy, you got to be happy for him at that point. He's had such a great, accomplished career. I think it'd be wrong if he went to any other team to go coach. I think it just feels weird and out of pocket. I think, at USC he belonged, especially with the culture that he created and the things that he did for the community. There's videos out there. He used to go to the hood at midnight and would go speak and coach up with the kids, in Watts and in Compton. And he would go out and, be a mentor for them and invite them to practice and see what it's like to be part of a team and all that. Not to recruit them for football, but at the same time to, give them a place where they could feel comfortable, where they don't have to, be ducking and hiding from gunshots everywhere. So, and he kind of did the same thing up here, creating a culture with a great group of young men here with our team. And, it's just, he gets to go be himself now with his family, and I think that's the best reward for working, his ass off for like the last 50 years.
Yeah. Well, let's transition now, because we have 45 minutes. At 5 o'clock, the show will come to an end. I want to make sure we have enough time to cover these things. And so Von L kind of starts it off, a good way to start this conversation. He says, "I'm sorry, man, defensive coaches rarely win Super Bowls, except Super Bowl 48, and barely win playoff games. This new decade, we are going to hire a young, better head coach. Trust me." And I assume he means also not just young and better, but offensive-minded. I'm taking that's where he's going with this. So I don't know how you guys want to start this discussion about who or what kind of, at least, head coach we should be looking for. But I don't know. Let's just kick it around. Cameron, we'll start with you. You're like our draft expertise guy. I know you got some inside information on what you think. I'm going to jump right into it and see what you think. Where do you want to go? I don't know if you want to jump right into names, or if you want to more go for like what characteristics you think we should go for, but the floor is yours.
I have very strong opinions about this. I want to start off with this offensive, defensive-minded thing. It drives me insane hearing. I hate those words. I absolutely hate them. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at these past Super Bowl winners. Let's go. So Andy Reid, obviously offensive-minded, but he's got the best. Okay, he's got a top 5 quarterback in the league, and he's got a really good offense. All right, the Rams. Sean McVay, play calling is not like even top 5 in his characteristics as a coach. That it's all leadership. Like, think about why, like, that roster is awful. Not awful. All right, I won't go that far, but they overperformed like crazy this year, and it's because he's a great coach. He's a great leader. You can't hire a guy. You can't hire a scheme. You have to hire a coach. Just because this guy has a great offense is not going to make this team better. Like, it just drives me insane. All right, Bruce Arians, he won a couple years ago, offensive guy, but he is like notoriously, like, he's a hard ass. Like, but guys love him for that. It's not because of his scheme. You also had Tom Brady. Andy Reid, and then I'll just go back to the Patriots won it with Bill Belichick. Like, that is such a myth. Like, I can't stand people talking about, like, oh, offensive-minded head coaches. You need a strong leader. I don't care if it's an offensive guy or a defensive guy. Doesn't matter to me. I want a strong leader. That's all I ask for.
Would you consider, though, Sean McVay, he's an offensive guy because he's a play caller, isn't he? You put him in the category, if you have to put in a category, offensive.
Offensive for sure.
Coach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what you're saying is, obviously, some of the guys who have won Super Bowls, coaches, have been offensive, like Andy Reid. Mm-hmm. He's clearly an offensive coach.
Yeah.
But we've had winners who've been defensive. But what your point is, it's not about what side of the fence they land on, but more of just the kind of person that they are. Is what you're
saying.
No,
I don't see a correlation. Like I see a correlation between strong leadership skills and successful playoff or football teams. That's really all I see.
Well, and I brought this up yesterday when I was talking about coordinators who have had great successes with their teams and gone on to fail as coaches. We talk about the Patriots, right? One of the biggest, greatest dynasties that football's ever had. And what are the names of the guys?
Patricia.
Matt Patricia and McDaniels.
Oh, Bill O'Brien.
Both those guys
they're
failed.
everywhere.
Yeah, but they did not succeed in the head coaching world for whatever reason. They're greatest coordinators. But
can we talk about Kyle Shanahan for a second?
Kyle Shanahan. Well, let me get the other guys to jump in for a second. I want to get their guys. And we're not getting into names yet, but as far as just what we're looking for, Nick, how about you? What are you looking for?
I mean, Cameron summed it up well. Culture, leadership. I think those are really the two most important things. You look at the teams and the coaches that have succeeded over the past decade. Really, it all comes down to culture. If you have the locker room bought in, you produce winning football. I completely disagree with this. Oh, we need to hire him because he's strictly offense. No, I completely agree with what Cameron has to say. I also, in some part, agree with what Base Tugboat in the chat has to say. I mean, let's just not hire anyone.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Sky High. You got a little imagery I see we ought to pick up here, but go ahead and start your...
there's no names. There's no names, which is why we can show the imagery, because there's no name associated to it. But this is the face of someone. This is someone who obviously is not going to be the Seahawks head coach, but is someone who I'd like to see. I'm just waiting for Karen's reaction. If you know, you know. All right? If you know who this is you know exactly who I'm talking about. But I've been saying he'd make a great head coach for the Seahawks if we hired this man. But I'll stop sharing. But to get back to what I'm going to piggyback right off Nick here and say that culture is something that I think we already have built here in Seattle, and it's not something where you've got to hire from the ground up and where you're building a team from the ground up. We have a team already, right? We also have a culture at the same time, right? That's the reason John stayed. I don't get why people would say, we need to completely restart this whole thing from scratch. No. If they wanted to start this whole thing from scratch, the executives would have been thrown out the door, the GM would have been kicked out the door as well, and we would have set the table to restart. We haven't done that. We've kept John Schneider. We're allowing him to go through the head coach selection process, and the expectation is somebody who is going to be a completely almost like a what's his name, Tom Coughlin like kind of guy. Why on earth would they hire a guy like him to come into a team that was just coached for the previous decade and a half by a guy who runs around in his mid-70s and is a crazy man? So I think culture is something that's really important and that matters, and we have a sustained culture here. But at the same time, something that hasn't been mentioned is we want to have a coach that fits our personnel, or that can develop our personnel, or that shares the same viewpoint that John Schneider has, right? The reason the Pete Carroll marriage and with John Schneider worked so well is because for so long they shared the same viewpoint. They had the same vision, right? All teams have the same vision. You can generalize this and say all teams have the same vision, but specifically speaking in terms of personnel, players, they may not have agreed on everything, but they shared the same vision in terms of who we needed to draft, who needed to be signed. So, right, you have to share the same vision, right? If you hire somebody who wants to come in and completely, rechange the offense and put in a scheme that doesn't fit our players well, or trade away certain players to try and mix and match things, it's going to change things up and feel a little uncomfortable and take a little bit of time to develop. So I think John is looking for that guy who fits in well already, right? Maybe throwing a little hint out there, fits in well, and somebody who doesn't matter based on previous success, right? But somebody who fits in well and somebody who fits in the culture and at the same time can use our personnel to the best. Seat Carroll.
Keep Carroll, I think is what
in case you were wondering, that guy who I just showed was Jason Brown, Coach JB. If you've ever seen the Netflix show, Last Chance or any football clip on TikTok, you might have seen him. He's a
psycho.
He's a psychopath. He's
I did not see it, so I did not know who that was.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to bring up something that I had not really thought about this till I had really kind of heard the argument since yesterday, and that is, here's potentially the issue with hiring a defensive coach, right? So if you're a defensive-minded coach who's not really the one calling the plays or coming up with the schemes, that means you're leaning heavy on your OC, right? Your offensive coordinator. So you get an offensive coordinator in, right? So much like Dan Quinn did with Atlanta, he had Mike Shanahan for a couple of years, and they ended up going to the Super Bowl, almost winning it, and then also I think another playoff appearance. Then Mike Shanahan leaves to go to the 49ers, and then they kind of fell off in terms of their record after that point. Point being is this a real thing when you have a defensive coach who's going to have to always have a good offensive coordinator to run the offense? But what happens to all good offensive coordinators? They're always looking to get promoted to the next head coaching job, right? Never does an offensive coordinator rarely stay for a long time with a team because that's what their next destination is. So if you got a defensive head coach who's got to constantly keep going through rotating, revolving doors of offensive coordinators, can that pose a long-term issue with a team if they can't keep some kind of consistency with a coordinator and not having to rebuild and restart that offensive situation every potentially 2 to 3 years? Do you guys believe that that's a real thing, or is that just complete bogus?
I mean, I think if your defense is playing to the level that you want it to be, ideally, you're probably still dealing with that. Whereas, say you have an offensive-minded coach, you're going to be replacing the defensive coordinator consistently. So I think it really goes to both sides of that. I see like kind of the point, but I mean, I think you're going to have the problem regardless if it's a good team.
Also,
sorry, go ahead, Cameron. Go
All right, yeah, I'll take this. It wouldn't be an issue if you can develop your coaches. If you can develop your coaches inside your own scheme, they can just keep running the same thing every year. And it's not impossible to hire another good offensive coordinator. Like I just looked it up. Dan Quinn, after Kyle Shanahan left, he hired Steve Sarkisian, and they had a top 10 offense, I think, that year. So, I mean, you can still do it.
Nick doesn't like that name. So yeah, that name brings him pain. So again, piggybacking, I guess, off what Cameron said is the fact that, you know, a perfect example actually of that was developing coaches was here, right? We had Gus, and then Dan, and then Chris Richard, and then the personnel issue. We started having personnel issues after the Legion of Boom collapsed, essentially. But at the same time, if you can develop your coaches into to be able to teach that scheme and be able to get good enough to where they can actually take the position, then you don't really have a problem. I think the argument over the defensive and offensive coach, it doesn't matter who we hire to me. I mean, if we hire Jim Harbaugh, I'm going to have a problem. But anyone else, I'm practically fine with it, not to throw out names. But at the same time, you want to make sure, again, that they fit the culture and that they have that they best fit the mindset that John has going forward in terms of personnel. But yeah, that's pretty much it right there.
All right, so let me throw this question out then. So we talked about offense versus defense. Then the other argument could be young versus old, because you got a few older candidates out there, guys who've had head coaching positions that are definitely in the running for head coach for the Seahawks. And you got some guys, obviously the coordinators, the younger guys coming up who have not coached before, and you know the Sean McVays and the Shanahan types of a few years ago. So where do you guys lean? Do you feel like the Seahawks, they've had this older coach now for a while? Do you feel like there's need to be younger first, or does that not matter?
I don't think it matters. I would rather have a qualified coach than a young coach. The obsession with 30-year-old offensive scheme lords just blows my mind. I can't stand it. It just drives me crazy. Like this Texans offensive coordinator, he's called plays for 1 year. And he got his first coaching job in like 2012. Like that's insane. I don't think he's qualified. I just don't see it. Don't get it. Like give him 2 more years of play calling and see if it holds up. He also has an incredible quarterback. So I don't know. I don't think it's if anything, I would rather have that guy that's been coaching in the league for 25 years. So I don't know. That's just me.
I'm gonna be interesting to hear what names you come up with in the end.
To say,
Jose.
I would say you can't get much older than Pete Carroll, first of all. So we are going to have to get younger. And I think from a perspective, I wouldn't be mad with these crazy offensive scheme lords, but obviously some have more experience than others, and some show more and more outlandish traits of being able to coach an entire team. But also at the same time, I wouldn't be mad if we hired someone older. And then again, you can't. Most of these coaches that we're looking at our pool aren't going to be overly old coaches that are stuck in the olden days, right? And I think every coach that we're hiring or not hiring, taking a look at is reasonably experienced, and I don't think John would be stupid enough to go say, hey, you've been an offensive coordinator for 1 year, you led a top 5 offense, come over here, run the ship over here, let's go do it. He's smarter than that. He's been in the industry for 25 plus years, so it makes much more sense that we would hire someone that obviously it's fine if they're younger, but at the same time fits what I've been saying earlier, but without throwing out names.
Nick, how about you? Young, old, does it matter?
It doesn't matter. Cameron nailed it again. Culture, leadership. I'm going to sound like a broken record by the end of the show because those are the 2 things I'm going to be saying. I don't care if it's a 90-year-old. If we can win playoff games, I'm happy with it. Culture, leadership. I just said it again. That's all I have to say.
All right. And somebody said earlier that Nick LaBow, you sound like you're underwater. You sounded a little bit better earlier, but now you sound even more like this, and I'm not sure why that is.
So here's what happened is my mic is not working, and so I've been like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been playing with it, so right now I'm on my AirPods. And
okay. All right. Well,
yeah.
I got you. That happens.
Someone who's 90 years old who runs like a half wing formation. You just got guys lined up, Mike Holmgren style. We've got smash mouth football.
It was funny. I was last week when I was out of town with a couple of my friends. We were watching an old video recording that was remastered in high def, but it was from the 1972 Broncos versus Raiders game from Monday Night Football. And man, I tell you, it was wild to watch that because it just showcased how different the game was back then to the way it is now. Things that jump out. First of all, that's when they had the goalposts on the goal line. So literally, if you run across the middle of the goal line, you could run into that goalpost. So that was before they moved it to the back of the end zone. But the biggest thing I noticed is that this is pre-shotgun. Shotgun formation didn't exist. I think the Cowboys were the first one to actually implement it on a regular basis. But everybody was always under center. So when they dropped back, they'd have to drop back like this or every pass play. But they always had 2 running backs. I mean, they ran a lot. It's so funny how different it was. Mostly run plays. The shoulder pads were like this big. But what was cool to see was how there's no safety rules in place. You'd see quarterbacks, bam, just get his head taken off, and it's just, that's too bad, man. Go take some smelling salts and get back out there. A rougher game. Yeah, painkillers, the shots of whatever, and just get back out there. Forget the concussions. That word didn't even exist back then. But it was interesting to see the differences between the quality of of course the broadcasts, the big old text fonts, the lower end cameras. It's just wild. You should look it up on YouTube because it's kind of a time warp to go watch these games and just to see what it used to be like. You take yourself back into the 70s, and it's a very different time.
Of course, you would know that because you're a Cowboys fan, Norb. You know exactly when they started.
I will not lie about that. I became a football fan because of the Cowboys, and I've said this many times. It's not because I had some allegiance to the Cowboys. They had Roger Staubach, who was whose name was very similar to a character named Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica, which was a sci-fi show I watched on 1978. That's the only reason I was like, oh, that's almost the same name. And then I just got into the whole thing, and they went to the Super Bowl, and then I discovered that the Seahawks had it. Seattle had a team, and that's where we went. Anyway, all right, so did we already cover the old thing? Everyone chimed in on that?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so let's go into the candidates. I guess we can start throwing out names and we can debate them. Cam, let's start with you.
Why don't we should just give our top two before, I guess throwing out names would be a little, I guess, we could try and give our top two candidates. It doesn't matter if we overlap them, but just kind of just to get the conversation.
All right, our top two. If you could throw two names into the hat for John Schneider to consider, and he was going to turn to you and said, Cameron, I'm really stuck here. What do you think, man? You've got a wealth of knowledge. Tell me, who should I choose? Give me two choices, and I'll pick one. Who are your guys?
All right. Yeah.
This is so interesting. I've been waiting.
It is interesting. Yeah. So, I know I was. So at first, I wanted them to hire Dan Quinn just because I was kind of emotional about Pete leaving and all that. I just wanted my childhood back. But I know I was talking about all these young coordinators and about how unqualified they are. But if there's a young coordinator that is definitely qualified, it's Mike Macdonald. He has 3 years of coordinating experience, 1 year at Michigan, and then I think it was 4 years actually. In the last 2 years at the Ravens, and when he took over, they're the 28th worst defense in the league, and he's turned them into the best defense in the league. And, for all the people that want a younger head coach, he's 36 years old. So there you go. And then my second one, which may surprise some, and that is the Rams defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris. Yeah. He is probably, honestly, he might be my number one, to be honest. Like, he has the perfect, he's been in the league for 22 years. He has coaching experience on both sides of the ball. He was a receivers coach for the Falcons for 5 years. And then he coached under Mike Tomlin, John Gruden, Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, Sean McVay, obviously this year and the last couple of years. And the last 3 years have been pretty impressive considering. So the 2021 year, the year they won the Super Bowl, I think they had a top 3 defense in DVOA. And then 2021 or 2023, this year, they outperformed their talent by far. They were projected to lose 12, 13 games. And they have, it's in the middle of the pack, but they've got a ton of inexperienced rookies and second year players. So I think he's done a great job. He's got, and he's the best part is he's a great culture guy. He's very charismatic. He brings the juice, I guess. He's, if you want a Pete Carroll kind of guy, that's who you want.
Interesting. So 2 defensive coordinators, Raheem Morris and Mike Macdonald.
Yeah.
When I hear Mike Macdonald, I think of "I'ma be there, I'ma be there." Now, you guys are too young to even know what I'm talking about, but
yeah,
Mike Macdonald is a great singer from the 80s. Anyway, those are 2 good choices. I'm not going to argue. Michael Macdonald has been a name that seemed like it's popped up and more recently has gotten traction. Jose, let's hear your 2.
All right. We'll go for number 2, and I think a lot of people are gonna hate me for these options. And no, it's not DC or DQ. I think number 2 for me has to be, I think, the most besides what's his face, besides in terms of NFL coaching, Bill Belichick. I think one of the most experienced guys played for Bill Belichick, and his name is Mike Vrabel. Vrabel obviously has deep ties with John Schneider. They've worked together before. And Vrabel's also, one of those, oh no, Cameron's ducked his head, I'm afraid. Vrabel is one of those guys who has been there, done that, and I think, he gets a bad rap, especially with the year that he had with Tennessee in terms of the team that he was given and the personnel and the situation that he had. And honestly, I think he's a better coach than what a lot of people think he is. He's sort of that defensive type guy. he's a player's coach at the same time, a disciplinarian, a guy who is able to control his players and also get love from them at the same time. I guess there's one question that I have about him is how he would run the offense here, but that's kind of beyond my control. I really hope if we do hire him, he doesn't really bring much people from Tennessee. I would on the offensive side, but I'd like to see a little bit more of an intuitive, a new style of offense. But Vrabel's someone who's definitely a safe bet kind of guy, safe hire. You're probably going to have some pretty good success with him. And I think Vrabel has a real chance to, build his name even further as the head coach of the Seahawks. He led Tennessee on multiple successful playoff runs. And, when you play the Chiefs, it's always the refs that are always playing against you as well. So, I think when they lost to the divisional round against Tennessee, I think they could, or to Cincinnati, had they won that game, they probably could have beaten Tennessee. They were a couple plays away from the Super Bowl in a span of 3 years. So he's done a fantastic job, in my opinion, over in Tennessee. And I think a lot of people are just hating on him because he gets a bad rap in terms of the record and what we saw when we played him when he was dealing with a really crappy team. If we were to go for my number one option, is none other. We're talking about another guy who's also familiar, very, very familiar actually with the system, and has been with the Seahawks since the beginning of the Pete Carroll era, and that's Dave Canales. Who is Nick okay? You know what, Nick?
Go ahead. Proceed on.
No. And here's why. Dave Canales, I like him, especially on the offensive side of the ball. He's someone who also, again, knows the culture, has decent leadership, and is also good at developing quarterbacks, right? It's someone that also Gino is familiar with, someone that our offensive players are familiar with, and someone that the entire building is familiar with. He's been he's been with Pete Carroll essentially since 2009. And I think he's done a fantastic job, albeit he's had a little bit of problems, especially with the offense in Tampa Bay. But at the same time, I think there's a possibility that some of Tampa Bay staff could come with him. Honestly, if Todd Bowles was on the market, I'd honestly want the Seahawks to hire Todd Bowles on the spot, but because he's a fantastic coach. But Dave Canales is one of, if not, I'm trying to be unique here because I don't think there's any chance we get Ben Johnson. But I'm trying to be unique here. But Dave Canales is definitely a guy who I'd like to see on the sideline, especially with, the stuff that, he's been in Seattle. I mean, he's been in Seattle. He knows what the system is. He knows what the culture's like, and it's just I think he's a good fit, and I think he also brings some of the energy. He's revitalized Baker Mayfield's career, and they've got a chance to go in and do something special against Detroit, which I think possibility that they do that. So yeah, those are my two right there. Nick, go ahead and spew your magic. Whatever.
Real quick before Nick jumps in, so Todd Bowles, I don't know. He was head coach at the Jets, and I know it was the Jets, but I remember thinking, felt like he didn't have a pulse when he was with the Jets. And maybe that's what being with the Jets does to you. I don't know, but he definitely did better when he stepped out of the head coaching realm and got back to doing what he was doing. But I was surprised. I caught all your names. I was just surprised at that one. Sky high. What do you like so much about Todd Bowles?
I like Todd Bowles. He's a very experienced head coach. He's a defensive first guy. And also at the same time, I think he's a silent dude, but also at the same time, he's learned a lot, right? He may not have had as successful runs, but he's learned a lot from a lot of great guys, a lot of great other coaches. So I think he was coaching with Andy Reid. He was coaching, you see here with Parcells. I think at some point I'm looking here, and then he was coaching with also Bruce Arians. And I think he's done a fantastic job with. Mike Holmgren, he's done a fantastic job, I think, with Tampa Bay this year, especially with the way that everybody thought that the Falcons and the Saints would kind of run away with his division. Tampa Bay hasn't played their best. I think his defense is completely he's done a fantastic job growing his defense. It shows when you have time to gel with your defense. It's taken them 4 years, but he's kind of kept those same guys in that same group. They're starting to get going on defense, and I think they're really good on defense. I just like him as a personal preference.
I like when did you see his press conference when the female reporter asked him, so are you doing anything to adjust to the weather
Journalism
in Detroit?
is dead. Journalism doesn't exist anymore. It's so ridiculous.
And he had to say, they play in a dome.
Yeah.
So
People
no.
get sent a list of questions to ask, and half of them are stupid. But, it's just...
I know. Sometimes common sense seems to go out the door these days. But all right, Nick, we want to hear your 2 top candidates that you're going to submit to John Schneider tomorrow.
Here we go.
So basically everything that I had was already said, so I'm going to say some different names. For the record,
Oh,
I'm
I
super
want to hear
high.
the ones I want to hear the ones. They don't have to be different because that just means
Okay.
you guys share the same common things. You could offer up
Yeah,
two
no,
alternatives,
Raheem
but if you
Morris
agree,
is my
go for it.
number 1, as well as Cameron. And then I had Mike Vrabel on my list too. I kind of worry about some coaches that jump right back into it, whether it's they get fired and go become a coordinator, or like Frank Reich become a head coach again and really don't take kind of the time off. I don't really think he's that guy. He has a lot of background with Tennessee and building up a good culture. Again, I sound like a broken record. And I won't go on too much about him, but I think it'd be a good hire for us. And then another guy I had on my list, Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator. I'm surprised he wasn't brought up. Again, culture. He's coming from the Lions, a great team in that. And really what he's done with Jared Goff in that Lions offense, I mean, they're wheeling and dealing in the playoffs, and it's been so fun to watch. I'd love to have him as a head coach. So, yeah, that kind of wraps it up.
I think Ben Johnson's going to end up going to... Cameron said it. He's going to end up going to Washington. I think he kind of
could
wants
see.
to go.
Well, he's going to interview
Yeah.
with Seattle on Saturday, isn't he? I think.
He is.
He's gonna
Wow,
go
that
to
was
the
a
see.
Lions.
playoff game.
John works his magic.
Can I mention something?
Don't-
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
it-
I still got to throw my 2
Yeah.
names into the hat, but go ahead.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I just think it's crazy that all of these head coaches that that Seahawks fans want are all like run heavy, like guys, and that's what we just hated with Pete forever. Like,
How about Coach
No.
Prime?
no, get out of here with that. No,
We
like
gonna
Ben
win the
Johnson.
game.
Ben Johnson is a run heavy coach, or he's a run heavy coordinator. They run it all day with Montgomery and
Gibbs. And for the
Gibbs,
record,
yeah.
I like that, so I'm not one
I
of the
love
fans
I do
that
too.
don't.
I love running the ball, but it's the same people saying like, "Oh, Pete runs the ball too much. We need to hire young Ben
Yeah,
Johnson."
totally.
I don't know.
And then they get
Well-
mad at Waldron when he's passing every third down.
Nick, do me a favor and mute your mic when you're going to go tappity tap
Okay.
on your keyboard because it's very loud. Go mute your keyboard.
Oh, that's
tapping.
not me.
No, I saw Nick. That's Jose. Jose.
Yeah.
I know that's you, Jose.
Jose.
You don't
Maybe
know
all
nothing.
sneaky over there.
I'm not being sneaky.
It's like a mouse nibbling on my ear when you do that. All right. Well, I'm going to say some names have overlapped already, but I think everybody's jumped off the Dan Quinn bandwagon, but I have not. I'm still one who feels like, I think I like what he could bring, and I don't know. Maybe everyone's got, they're just going off of recency bias because of what happened against the Cowboys and the Packers game. But I look beyond just the one game. He has done a really good job with that defense, and for whatever reason, they kind of blew it in that playoff game. But again, what he did with the Falcons, he did take them to a Super Bowl, had a playoff run, and I think, as you said, was it you, Cameron, who said he had a top 10 offense even after they lost Shanahan? So I think culture-wise, I think as far as what he could do in the locker room, I still believe that there's strength there. And John Schneider did say that is one of the priorities of the Seahawks. They want to keep that culture that they built. They want to keep that moving forward. So that would be a perfect fit for the guy. Now, what's interesting is everyone says, he just wants to run the ball all the time, and it's they're tired of that. But it's funny is that the one thing they didn't do is run the ball enough this whole season. As much as everybody complained that he's antiquated and just wants to run the football, that's the last thing they actually did. And they needed to do that more often, just do it better. They needed to run the ball better, So it wasn't like it's just a matter of we just must run. Just have to run better plays that'll get better yardage and mix it up so it's not so predictable. But it's not necessarily the play calls that they had. It was maybe the timing of when they did it. So for that reason, I still feel like there is something good that can come out of a Dan Quinn hiring. And again, if the Cowboys had won and destroyed them, let's destroy the Packers and move forward. I think a lot of people would be like, yeah, we need to get Dan Quinn in here. But it's that same thing, like one game. Does that really define, a person's, abilities? Does it really define what they can bring potentially and take one game, one day out of the last 10 years? Anyway, something to think about.
Yeah,
but I'm with you guys.
Off his defense.
What's that?
We blew the brakes off his defense when we played them on Thursday night. Kind of.
That's because Gino's him.
Sure.
Yeah, Gino is him, but like haters will say, let's draft JJ McCarthy and let's go start him day one. JJ McCarthy should be undrafted if you ask me. Bro literally threw for less than 3,000 yards and like less than 20 touchdowns, and then you're saying we should draft him in the first round. He's worth as much as Penix is. Oh, that's literally some Seahawks fans, mainly on Twitter. So don't go look on Seahawks Twitter.
You need to get off of Twitter, Jose. You need to get
I
off.
know.
It's a bad.
It's a bad place.
I do have to say though that if we were to, that's my defensive direction. Now, if they had to go choose a guy from the offensive side, I'm with you guys with Ben Johnson.
So nobody likes Dave Canales here, right? Really?
No, I'll defend him. I'll defend him.
Is it because he wears the 2 instead of the 1 headset
that
things?
That is kind of weird. That is.
Pulls a Cliff Kingsbury. Wears the 2 headset muffs.
I mean, he can't hear anything on the field. Like, what is he doing?
Whatever.
I do like what Ben Johnson's done, right? I mean, what a turnaround they've done over there. I think Dan Campbell, what he's created with their culture, those guys look like they'll run through a brick wall for him. Dan Campbell's a defensive guy, right? Isn't he a defensive-minded coach, or is he offensive? Is he?
He's
I don't know.
offensive,
He hits me as a guy that looks like he's coming from a defensive mindset because he's just such a badass.
He was a
Breaking
tight end.
kneecaps and all that stuff. It was funny when he first brought him. Now it's like, wow, I think that stuff is actually sticking with these guys.
Yeah.
And I so badly want the Lions to get to the Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be a great story if the Lions could somehow escape all this to get past the likes of the 49ers?
Hopefully they don't play the Chiefs, because then like the Chiefs would have the refs would have to fix the game and all that. And then...
I want to see the Bucks make it. Baker and the
Bucks
Super
made
Bowl?
it 2 years ago.
I don't care.
It was a very different Bucks team then.
Whole different team.
The defense is exactly the same. The offense is...
No. What? The defense?
The defense is literally pretty much almost the same.
If we had more time, I'd pull that up, because I don't believe that.
It's not. They got the
do
Washington
it real quick. Pull that up in like 30 seconds. I don't know. I guess that's a good question. Like, who do you guys want to see? I mean, we're getting off the coaching thing. I mean, we've kind of made our points, right? So it seemed like Johnson's on a lot of people's lists. I heard
Texans.
Lions, Texans. I'm going Lions, Bills. Lions, Bills would be the battle of the two have-nots teams going at each other.
Imagine Vegas. Vegas would literally be like...
Worst Super Bowl
everywhere. It would be literally insane.
What I wonder is, would a Bills-Lions Super Bowl, would that be like ratings gold or ratings disaster?
Oh, Bills-Lions? That would be good. Yeah, if you got Lions-Texans, that would be a disaster.
Yeah, I kind of would.
Which is sad, because that's what I want to see.
Yeah. I feel like, though, with Lions-Bills, they can play up the underdog story.
Yeah.
And I think that would drive it.
Yeah. Stephon Diggs would have to watch the ceremony if he lost again.
We
were this close this time.
They'd show that picture of him standing and watching the Chiefs celebration. They'd show that every day for 2 weeks.
They're going to show that all game tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Is the game tomorrow?
I think
the Ravens
Bills?
Texans is tomorrow afternoon, I think, and then the NFC 49ers and Packers is tomorrow night.
Those are good games.
Yeah.
Can we?
Yeah, they're all
talk
good
about
games
Jim
for sure.
Harbaugh, please.
They have like 3 different starters, Cameron.
Can we address the Jim Harbaugh to Seattle?
Yeah, nobody talked about that.
I have.
Let's remove the fact that it's probably not realistically happening. But let's say if it was realistically an option. Cameron, you obviously have a strong feeling about that. Go ahead.
I would not watch the Seahawks at that point because they're no longer the Seahawks. They would be the Seattle sellouts if they hired Jim Harbaugh. Like, that goes against like the last 14 years of everything you've been doing. Like, everybody on that Seahawks team absolutely hated that guy. You're just like, I guess, cutting ties with all those guys if you hire him. I just can't. Everything that Jim Harbaugh does, I mean, it's what everybody has hated Pete Carroll for. Run the ball, run, pass, run, pass. You can build a good offensive line and good running game without hiring Jim Harbaugh. It drives me insane. Why is he even being brought up? Like, that's ridiculous. To me, I don't see it.
He's a cheater too. That kind of stuff pisses me off.
Allegedly,
National championship.
we don't have.
Alleged cheaters.
Yeah,
Freaking hate cheaters.
I wouldn't mind drafting a couple of their players though.
Coming from sky high. Astros
Oh,
fan.
so nobody mentioned Brian Flores or Bieniemy or
Definitely
Waldron.
no.
Waldron.
Bieniemy's got to be
Hold
the
on.
most overrated candidate.
Yeah, I know. Bieniemy sucks. I don't.
I
Like
wanna defend Shane Waldron real quick.
Oh yeah, because there was actually somebody who said Shane Waldron for head coach. You're gonna go
I
that
didn't
far?
say that. I didn't go that far.
Okay. How far are you gonna go with this?
Shane Waldron. I was a big Shane Waldron hater. I'll say that early in the season because Gino was playing bad and I needed someone else to blame. But I mean the play calling wasn't that good. But this entire year, oops, my computer's about to die. This entire year, EPA per play, expected points added, Seahawks were 10th in the league. That's higher than the Buccaneers with your guy Dave Canales.
Davey.
Yeah, and then the Texans with everybody's favorite coaching candidate Bobby Slowick. So, I don't know. I think he did fine this year. I wouldn't be pissed off if we kept him. I wouldn't be against it. Kind of want to see something new, but
Want to see his famous recipe again? You know, cooking up. What's he cooking up out of that playbook for Gino?
Jose,
and the
what
gang?
happens if he's not on the staff next year and you can't say that?
Oh, I'll
Yeah.
just come up with something else. You know, I always come up with something. You know, I'll always find something. You know.
All right, we got about 6 minutes before I have to end this broadcast. But, there's a big question about the Seahawks quarterback situation. Obviously, Gino's a very divisive player as it is. You got guys who love him and guys who hate him. But there's a hard decision the Seahawks have to make here because, what is it? In a couple of weeks, his guaranteed money, isn't it like $12 million or something, is going to go into effect for next year. So the Seahawks kind of have to decide if they're rolling with Gino or if they're going to cut ties. Sooner
You said
than
how
later.
many weeks from now?
I thought it was the middle of February.
By then, we'll have a new head coach. I would hope so, and we'll have a decision made by that time. Because I feel like in the interview process, Geno Smith's name has got to be coming up a lot, and what the plan for him is. Because I feel again, he's the centerpiece of this offense, and I think he's more than capable of being the starting quarterback of this team, whether we draft a quarterback or not. I still think he can go out and lead us to the promised land, depending on who we hire as coach. But I think that's one of the big details, and I would feel so bad for Gino if it kind of just fell apart for him this way, especially this way with the way Pete got pushed aside, and then the new coach comes in. I feel like it would be bad. Obviously, if Gino isn't the quarterback next year, he's obviously going to be the quarterback of a team next year. I think he's earned the right to be a starting quarterback for other teams. Regardless of what happens to him this year, and I'd like to see him starting opening day next year, hopefully.
So you're willing to put the money in. You want him back if it's up to you.
Yes, I would. He is the real deal in terms of quarterback. We have seen so much promise from him. He's learned so much, and that's why I kind of went hand in hand with the Dave Canales thing, because I think it would just be a perfect, even better pairing. Him and Mayfield have had their problems this year, but Geno Smith is familiar with Canales, right? Canales is someone who has, again, brought up in the Seahawks system, someone that Geno Smith has learned with, along with Russell Wilson, and I just think it'd be an even better pairing if you're talking about quarterbacks. And then you can maybe draft another quarterback and then have someone, have Canales try and develop him at the same time. So there's my kind of piece of cake of it, but at the same time, no matter who's the coach, I'd want Geno to start.
Guys, how about you, Nick? Do you want Gino back?
I mean, I think for now we'll, like you guys kind of alluded to, we'll know in a few weeks. From what I've seen, I'd say for another year, yeah. I mean, he's only got, 2 years left on his deal. Now, I wouldn't mind, in the same sentence, and I'm a biased Husky fan, so if Michael Penix falls to our pick, I couldn't be mad at the selection. But no, I think for next year, I think Geno starting would prove to benefit.
Cam, what about you?
We need to do like a Geno Smith film breakdown because the Geno Smith hate is absolutely insane. It drives me crazy. I can't stand it. It's insane. He's 34 years old. He's a pocket passer. He's not. If he avoids injury, he could have minimum four good years left. That's quarterback in the NFL. He's the 18th highest paid quarterback in the league. There are guys paying a lot more to a lot worse quarterbacks. I can't believe we're actually having this conversation. His previous 8 years with other teams is totally tainting him. His reputation is just totally holding him back. Yeah, that's
I agree.
that's
And then really this whole season, the offense has not been the problem. It's been the defense. You know, we've played plenty well to win. The Dallas Cowboys are a perfect example. I think they showed up a stat where when the Seahawks scored 35 points, we were 36-0 until that night. But that's the defense. You know, we gave up 41, I think. I mean,
well, not to mention the refs. The refs also, you know,
the refs. Yeah, true. But my point is, it wasn't Geno's fault that we lost that game. There have been plenty of games it was not Geno's fault. Geno played
I have one more
well
point.
enough to win.
One more point.
Yeah.
The Seahawks had a bottom 3 offensive line according to like 3 different metrics. We gave Russ a lot of lenience with his offensive line play, and Geno doesn't get any of that. Any of it.
I would, that makes sense. And
It's
even
funny
with
how
bottom,
much. It's funny how much you hear. Geno needs to get the ball out quicker. Yet, where did we hear that when Russ was the quarterback? I mean, come on now.
Because Russ is Houdini.
Well, there was plenty of times we were saying Russ is holding onto the ball too long, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I think Geno gets a bad rap. I'm excited to see who the Hawks hire as a coach. I just hope it's not anyone by the name of Jim Harbaugh. I would be happy with pretty much anyone else. Some more than others, but also at the same time, let's let this be a moment for the future, right? Hire someone who we think is the best. We're trusting our team in Johnny's hands, and if not, so be it. But again, I'm excited for the future. NorbCam is excited for the future.
Well, you have to be, right? Because there's no other way except forward.
Yeah,
so we've got to find a way.
That's us. We coming now.
Yeah.
We are on the rise.
Alec Vega with a super chat says it's insane how Geno and Baker Mayfield have turned things around. Go Bucks, by the way, beat them Lions.
I've always been a big believer in Baker Mayfield.
Me too.
I've loved his quarterback play. I think he'd be a solid quarterback for any team. I think he gets a bad rap.
Well, right now we're seeing some up and coming quarterbacks making some noise, right? Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield.
Could have had Baker at $3 million.
Instead, he got Geno at $1 million. So,
Coach NorbCam. NorbCam for coach,
right.
baby.
Yeah. Best coaching I can do is on Madden, and you see how well I do there. All right. Well, I said we got to wrap this up, so this is it. Make sure you guys check out these guys' channels. I got their links in the description. They each have their respective YouTube channels, so make sure you check out their content. We'll definitely do another show to break down what we think of. I don't know when the pick's going to happen, when they'll make a decision. Obviously, some teams like the Raiders just signed their head coach today, basically signing interim head coach to the duty. So this, I don't know, we could be as soon as next week. They had a good second half of the year. Yeah. So I don't know. It could be next week. I don't know. It could be 2 weeks, but I'm sure before the Super Bowl, the Seahawks will have a decision.
Yeah.
Most likely. So we'll definitely have to talk about that. Everyone will be talking about it once that happens. So, all right. Well, that's it, because I got to go. 5:02. Yes, Sky High Aviation. Thanks for the shout out. Support my channel if you want. Join the NorbFam. And by hitting that join button underneath the stream. But that's it. So make sure you guys subscribe, hit that like button, comment away. Let us know what you think the Seahawks who they should get for their head coach. We'd like to see what your thoughts are. That's it.
Go Hawks.
We'll see you
Go
guys
Hawks.
next time. We're going to hit you
Go
with
Hawks.
that open. Go Hawks. Let's hit that open one more time. We'll see y'all later. Go Hawks, baby.
My safe word is pineapple juice.